My name is Jeff Carlett. How I ended up in this room today, I have no idea. But I'm 23 years with Compaq, HP, HPE. And the beauty of this 23 years I've had here is I've been working with Microsoft specifically 18 years probably. And I step into this MTC and I go back to the days that we were driving private cloud solutions with Microsoft. It was all about how do we take Hyper-V share and increase it, if you will, and make it a viable solution in the marketplace. How do we do the first live motions of applications? And I look now, and we'll talk, we are so far advanced from pushing the technology, pushing the speeds and feeds, that it's a much greater purpose that we have as a company. And I'd like to share with you our approach to hybrid cloud. We see the world as hybrid. But most importantly, we have some special guests here. We're going to do a brief panel discussion and really, I think, learn a lot from the trials and experiences and outcomes and benefits that they're seeing for their organization. So with that, find the old clicker. Specifically, when I look at myself here, 23 years, I've evolved from product management, but now I'm leading actually 5 of our global strategic partnerships. I've learned through the days as well that to deliver solutions, to deliver outcomes to our customers, we can't do it alone. And increasingly as a company, HPE has really brought ourselves to a right size and amplified, if you will, our partnering in the ecosystem, such as with Microsoft, with Micro Focus, with a number of other partners. And the beauty of what I see from our alliance 30 plus years is we are spot on in alignment with where Microsoft is going as well. We see the world as hybrid. We see customers can truly garner the benefits of better service levels, of better efficiencies, of better customer satisfaction, of a better experience by embracing public cloud, but we believe the world is hybrid in that on-prem infrastructure, on-prem services will still be needed, and the blend together between Antonio and Microsoft is just totally aligned on the strategy. When I mentioned hybrid cloud, there was a day when the world, oh my God, everything's going to go to public, everything's going to go to public. We made a stand saying, no, we believe a right mix approach is the best beneficial thing. And we are here as HPE, and you'll hear later today, we have services and capabilities that can help get you to where you want to be, whether it be accelerating your public cloud adoption. We have capabilities through CTP, our cloud technology partners, renowned capabilities, proven track record, cloud advisors with over 1,000 transformations for businesses to move to public cloud for certain applications. You want to build a private cloud with the utmost of security. We've done this. We've got the capabilities to help you on this. Optimizing your cloud deployments, freeing up that capacity is what we do, and we are here to help you with our infrastructure, with our services, with our partnerships going forward. HPE is really pivoting to actually be an as-a-service company. Antonio Neri announced by 2022, every product we offer as a company will also be delivered in an as-a-service model. We believe cloud is not necessarily a destination. It's an experience that customers increasingly like and be able to be metered and be able to spin up applications to release those. We believe it's built on the infrastructure, the world's best infrastructure. In a Microsoft environment, we have the biggest footprint out there running in Microsoft environments. So whether it be our server storage, networking, our converged systems, our hyper-converged offerings, AI, ML, mission-critical equipment. We've got the infrastructure needed to build the cloud or the private cloud of your choice. We believe there needs to be flexibility in whether it be virtualized, whether it be bare metal as we run in containers. And our partnerships with the likes of Microsoft and others allow us to provide choice in the marketplace for however customers would like to build out their infrastructure and the underlying applications and virtualized layer. We also believe the world going forward is cloud-enabled and edge-centric. We believe inherently AI and machine learning are critical to the advancements needed to deliver the better outcomes for customers, to allow businesses to stay competitively advantaged to their competition. We believe this is inherently critical, and everything to be delivered as a service over the next couple years. But there's a greater thing, and I'm really excited about this. As I mentioned, I'm not pushing faster RPMs and I/O. It's around our purpose. At HPE, our purpose is really to advance the way people live and work. It's a much greater purpose than just building and selling the world's best infrastructure and solutions. And when I think of examples, fan engagement. Tottenham Stadium in London just opened up. They came to us. They were looking to build the next generation experience in football or in soccer. And they came to us, and together, leveraging our capabilities of our infrastructure, our Aruba high-speed wireless, they built this stadium. 62,000 people can concurrently get full access to Wi-Fi. It all comes from the applications that are being used, Meridian application, the ability of do wayfinding through to your seat, to be able to know proximity-wise exactly where the closest refreshment stands, providing fan engagement and a fan experience that no one else can touch. This is what provides an experience that customers want to come back and want to come and join this. So that's one example. Alzheimer's. Here's near and dear to me. There's a German company called DZNE. It's not a company, but a research project. This German research project is looking at onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. Every 3 seconds, someone new is diagnosed with dementia. As the world's population continues to age, this is of paramount importance that we figure out a way to better understand the markers and what could lead as a predisposition for those that may get dementia or Alzheimer's. So they've got a project, they're tracking 30,000 people in Germany, 30,000 people over 30 years. And they're measuring all kinds of data, such as the gait of the walk, all kinds of parameters. And they're bumping up against the ability of actually crunching the data. And they actually, from a security standpoint, they have customers in the field, they have researchers in the field filling up disk drives and mailing the disk drives back in to be analyzed. Unacceptable. So they turned to HPE. And with our memory-driven computing, we were able to provide much greater access to crunching the numbers, delivering the outcomes, and being able to take what used to run 29 minutes for one analysis. They can do that now in 9 seconds. So here we are. We're one step closer to providing guidance or ideally a cure for one of the world's most debilitating diseases in the world. That's another example. Other examples, I won't go into detail, but Purdue University really figuring out how can we provide much better the yield, if you will, on crops, using edge computers and robots, being able to go through and identify weeds. Is it a weed? Is it a stalk? If it's a weed in the field, it actually sprays it with a pesticide or a weed killer and kills it, improving efficiencies. And then our first supercomputer we sent to Mars, really focused around advancing the way people live and work. And to kind of parlay that, we are very unique in this session here to be able to have John Hamm and Teresa Tonhat Tonette, from Texas Children's. And we're going to just have a little talk about their experience and specifically how they're going through their digital transformation. So please join me. Okay, so as we get going, one thing I did when I started doing a little research, I wanted to know, okay, so we're advancing the way people live and work. It's really meaningful to me, it really means a lot. So I was looking at your mission statement, okay? And this is what I captured, tell me if it's still correct. Texas Children's mission is to create a healthier future for children and women throughout our global community by leading in patient care, education, and research. John, is that still the mission statement?
That's accurate, and I think it's important to highlight the leading part of that.
You're exactly right. I was also amazed to be able to do some of the research and understand you are top 1, 2, 3, and basically all the disciplines that you specialize in as a hospital. So why don't you introduce yourselves, introduce a little bit about the hospital, and let's hear about the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Texas Children's is fascinating, and Teresa and I have the privilege of being part of the organization as well as part of the information technology. And a little bit about Teresa and I is I think my mic just cut out. So I think a little bit about Teresa and I is that we both came from non-traditional healthcare. So we've been in the industry working for Fortune 500 oil and gas, chemical manufacturing, and other enterprises. Texas Children's, oftentimes people think of a single hospital or maybe the TCP that's located just down the road that you see. But in reality, it's about 90 locations across Texas, including as we grow in Austin. And if you think about it, it's 4 hospitals. And if you start thinking about the number of employees, we have more than 15,000 employees. And if you add our providers, then that puts us at around 20,000 users that use the IT systems. We have a strong partnership with Baylor College of Medicine as our academic partner, and so we partner closely with them from a research and from their expertise for our physicians. And then if you think about that from a data perspective, we have more than 5 petabytes of data, the largest pediatric hospital in the world with some of the most complex cases around the world. So there's a lot of opportunity for machine learning. My specific responsibility at Texas Children's is responsibility for the electronic health record system and the associated clinical applications, responsibility for our ERP and supporting our business functions such as HR, finance, marketing, and supply chain, and then also growing our artificial intelligence platform so that we can provide those better services to our users across the system.
Those are all big topics, for sure.
Yeah.
Teresa?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Teresa Tonthet. I'm responsible for cybersecurity, infrastructure, digital services, and biomedical engineering, which includes connected IoT type devices. I've joined Texas Children's for about 2 years. I think I make my 2 years anniversary this month. And it's pretty phenomenal how I've seen we've grown over the past decade. John touched about the growth within Texas, but from a digital asset standpoint, we have doubled in size every 5 years since 2010. And when you talk about digital assets, and of course with my cybersecurity hat on, I think about the threat attack surface continuing to grow. We have over 35,000 connected devices, and we store over 3 million protected health information of our patients, which doesn't include around 420,000 or so member information, because we are both on the provider side as well as the insurance side as well. So it's definitely never a dull moment at Texas Children's. We continue to grow, and I think our CEO, Mr. Mark Wallace, says we're Texas Children's, we're not Houston Children's. So we're continuing to grow into Austin's and other areas within Texas as well. So it's a very exciting time for us.
Yep. Excellent, excellent. So amazing, over 30,000 connected devices, 5 petabytes of data. It's just to be able to utilize that data, to be able to garner insights from that data, provide greater service levels is just amazing. The fact that you two are doing that with, and now expanding, if you will, into places like Austin, I think is a testament that you're doing it right. You're actually embracing technology. You're moving down a digital transformation that's actually delivering greater outcomes for your facility, your doctors, your patients, and the rest of the company.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about, okay, you know, when I think of customers and sharing their experience, I think about the challenges. The world keeps moving, digitization is happening, security is of paramount importance. John, maybe you can start out with, what are the challenges that Texas Children's has been facing? And then we'll talk about how you are approaching to address those challenges.
Yep, absolutely.
Is this mic working? Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So hats off to this sound. I'm responsible for our conference rooms, and I know how pain conference rooms are. So whoever, like, I get it, absolutely get it. But we'll get, yeah, I'll just keep going without it. Yeah. So the you know, over the last 3 to 5 years, the pace of change, the rapid pace of technology growth has just exploded. You know, if you look at in the venture capital world, one of the venture capital sites you can look at is angel investors, and I love to go out and just browse some of the startup. If you look recently, there's more than 21,000 companies, startup companies, focused just in the healthcare sector. Each of those companies, the average valuation is $4.5 million. And so if you think about that, most of vendors have figured out, stop calling IT. Call the physicians, call the researchers, call the practice administrators, call everyone but IT. And so what's happened is that you know, everyone at Texas Children's is there for one mission, and that is for the children and for women that we serve. And so part of the challenge is whenever people hear those great technology opportunities to improve care or change an outcome or impact research, they come with their heart on their sleeve, their best interest, their best investment to say, we want to turn this technology on. And so, and so when that's happened and you're living in a world of traditional IT and traditional, I call it the digital supply chain, the contract process, the finance teams, that doesn't mix, it doesn't match. And so 3 years ago, Teresa and I, and our CIO, Chief Information and Innovation Officer, Myra Davis, along with the support from Mark Wallace and our board, took a step back and we said, we need to make sure that we have the right platform so that we can work through this change. And so, you know, I'll pause because I know you're going to throw me a softball related to that, but I'll say that, you know, I think the biggest challenge right now is when it comes to caring for a child or a woman, how do you prioritize all the capabilities that are out there? And then how do you focus your resources and say, no, we not right now for that one, but we're going to focus over here. And so that's probably one of the biggest challenges that we all face as an institution.
Excellent. Teresa, any comments?
Yeah, just to add on to what John was mentioning, and we were talking about the significant growth at Texas Children's over the past decade and beyond. One of the challenges that we face is just this organic growth that we've been having over the past years. And it's like we started so small and gradually we started buying campuses and buying communities. And then now we're kind of in a position where how do we standardize everything? So as we continue to go to Austin and potentially other cities, we want everything enterprise-wide and standard, right? From a security standpoint, but then from an availability and reliability standpoint. So as John mentioned earlier, about 3 years ago, John actually spearheaded this because I joined two years ago, is this huge data center transformation program where he took 8 to 10 data centers in our med center and consolidated into 2 co-location data centers with next-gen technologies. But it wasn't just the technology component, right? It's, do our people understand and know how to operationalize and sustain those technologies? And to me, that's a continuous journey. It doesn't you can't just send them to training and they know what they're doing and then they continue operations. It's an investment back in your people, and that's something that I feel we do very well at Texas Children's, in giving our staff and our leaders opportunities to learn new technologies, staying abreast, and to take us to that modernization that we both is part of our mission in IT at Texas Children's as well.
Excellent, excellent. So the consolidation you've had, I mean, that's a significant journey that you've been on. Where are you in this journey? Is it ever going to be over? Is it, I mean...
You want me to take that?
Yeah.
So I would say from a data center transformation standpoint, it was a 3-year program with 20 or so different projects, migrating over 700 applications. And we're not done yet, right? We're now doing the last pieces of the migration, and we had this huge effort around disaster recovery. Prior to 3 years ago, we truly did not have a formal disaster recovery plan. Now we can actually come to the board, come to our emergency management organization and say, hey, in the case of a disaster in our Houston data center, we can commit to the organization 4 hours to 24 hours, depending on the tier of the application, to bring up our Austin data center. And we're super excited because we're going through our first DR test February 7th, just this week, if not next week. And we anticipate a lot of lessons learned from this, right? So it's kind of this even flow process where we learn and continue to fine tune and pivot where we need. But I think that's a huge commitment that we're able to now provide to our physicians and our workforce and our leaders, that we're now able to do that in the case of a disaster. So I wouldn't say it's done, but tying that to our cybersecurity program, I would say that is continuously never ending as well. Evolving technologies, emerging threats come. Our team has the support of Myra Davis as well as Mark Wallace on our board, and they put that trust in us to flex as we need to address new emerging threats, whether it's from advanced persistent threat actors or, quite frankly, internal threat actors as well. So I think it's never ending.
I agree, and we had dinner last night, got to know them a little bit more, and one thing that stands out to me is you're clearly on the leading edge and you're using technology in your toolkit, but you're also changing the people, the processes necessary to give those greater service levels. John, you mentioned last night really creative things you're doing, almost creating a social environment. What do you call it? YouTube on the inside.
Yeah.
Please explain a little bit about that. That's
Yeah.
revolutionary thinking from my perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just taking a step back, one of the aha moments that we had during the data center transformation project, which was truly taking the 10 data centers and multiple vendors and consolidating that to just a few vendors on HPE, Synergy, and 3PAR, and then also building a relationship with Microsoft on building out our hybrid cloud. We got to a point where HPE came in and we met with our full leadership team, and it was a room about this many, and he walked through the journey that HPE went through during the transformation, and he spent a lot of time talking to us about the people change that had to occur and the reflection that people have to make a choice of whether we're going to continue to operate like traditional IT or not. And I'll tell you, a lot of people started shifting as Scott got into that story, and quite frankly said there's some people that might make some choices not to be part of that journey. Later on, we also discovered within our infrastructure, as we truly rolled out software-defined infrastructure and started implementing DevOps within the infrastructure team and automating our systems, that was a real pressure point. But we had some of the best partners, HPE, Microsoft at the table, and then our own employees who worked weekends, worked nights, but also shifted what they had learned for the last 10 to 15 years and truly started taking some coding classes, started shifting the way they think about infrastructure. We built an interoperability team. Teresa built an ICE team. The ICE team's job was only one mission, was to go into a room and rethink about how IT should function. They were new leaders. To get to your point, what we're working on right now is we realize that in the modern world of IT and working with CTP and building a cloud business office is it no longer can be just about IT. It has to be about building stronger digital leaders across the organization. So we've set up, we've been running 2 quarters now where we have 21 business engagement meetings across the organization where our executives and leaders come in. So nursing, surgery, our finance department, they come in and we talk about technology. But most importantly, what we did was we built a toolkit that takes our enterprise architecture standards on one page. They can self-evaluate technology to see if it meets our standards before they get too far in the project. Teresa worked with our legal team and built a 13-questionnaire cybersecurity and legal document that they can self-evaluate to see if there's any red flags. And so we're working with our business engagement teams to use those to have the right conversations across the organization and build stronger digital leaders. And what we're piloting right now on Microsoft Steam is the idea of launching what we call influencer. And so the influencer channel inside, what our thought process is could people upload videos that we can see if they take off? So if I have a physician who loves data science and wants to share that, or if I have someone who is doing a lot of great things with teams, especially in our executive admin support who works a lot with file movement and collaboration, why can't I give them a voice to publish how they're using technology and then let people go? And kind of like YouTube, the pilot I saw last week within using Steam is it'll bring those tags up to the top so that the most popular will come up. And so those are the ways that we're really trying to engage our organization and build stronger digital leaders that are partnerships with IT versus being the funnel of IT.
That's a great example. So here you are, you've got folks from HP, of course, Microsoft, and your journey, there's a huge ecosystem of partners and providers out there. And just, what do you look for when you're evaluating who you're going to hitch your wagon to, I guess I'd say, as far as taking, I mean, what parameters are most important from both of you?
I would say reputation is good. We do a lot of reference calls with our peers. We have a really large network, not just in the Med Center, but as Don mentioned, we didn't come from healthcare, so we have reached back to other industries, oil and gas, energy, finance, and I think that helps a lot. Like when we make a decision of which vendor would be our strategic partner, we do a lot of homework and due diligence on that as well. And a lot of it is really when you come to the table and you're in a challenging situation, right? We want someone that will pull up a chair and join our architect team and engineering team, not necessarily sit there and go back to the statement of work or the contract and say, hey, that's not part of scope, let's do a change order. It's really embedding them into our team, and that makes a huge difference because if you all have a large architect team, usually these are very technical, highly top technical talent in your organization, and bringing in sometimes third parties could be a disruption as well. So how do you have that right balance of making your teams feel that you have their back and you trust in their judgment, and then really it's just augmenting their capabilities and their manpower with a third-party trusted vendor to then help enhance their capabilities. And I think it's very key to drive that home to your teams, because if not, you may be in a position where they don't feel trusted, they don't feel useful for what they're developing and bringing to the table. So I think there's always to answer your question, it's making sure you pick the right vendor that could be part of your team and not viewed as professional services. Right?
Great. Yeah, and I think, and I'll shoot on the other angle, since you gave me the stage for this. So I receive more than 20 emails a day from various vendors. There's a lot of vendors out there. And honestly, I used to get a little irritated by it, and it was just a lot. And and a couple rules of thumb: if I get more than twice and I didn't respond, I right-click and do junk. Just what I do with it, right? But my son is an inside sales rep. He was working for Neonsa, who just got acquired by VMware, so it was very good for him. But he talks to me all the time about, Dad, what works? What do you look at? What do you do? What do you do? So the trick is I'm interested in what's out there because there's people that are tackling real serious issues, but there's a lot of information coming in from all locations. Some of the best emails that I get are when someone just sends an email and says, I'm going to share a story with you of what we did innovatively at another healthcare system, and they tell me a story about that. The ones that don't help is the common words. Here's the bullet point list of innovation and cybersecurity and all that. I get it, but there's so many vendors that do that. And so there's a couple that tend to pique my interest really when I get that and I learn a little something or think a little bit differently when I receive that email. So any of you out there that send those, just a little tidbit, but I am interested. I do read them. I actually tried, at one point I tried to have a little fun with it, and I used Microsoft's auto reply, and I created this in the font, like the Robotica font, and I said, the crappy marketing AI engine has picked up your email because it was boring. Thank you. But then I felt bad because like 2 people didn't write back afterwards. And I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. So anyway, but no, then I got serious. I was like, you know what, I kind of felt bad. So there's got to be a different way. So I'm going to start kind of exploring them and using those emails as a way to explore what new ideas are out there. And that put a little bit more of a positive spin on trying to see how the market's moving.
Well, I know from an HPE standpoint, and I'm assuming from Microsoft standpoint, we're ecstatic that you've chosen us as well to be your partner in your journey. And a couple more questions, and we'll button this up. I talked a lot about the outcomes. It's not the technology, it's what you can deliver and the meaningfulness of what you deliver from the outcomes. Would you summarize about some of the outcomes through your journey, your implementation of solutions? What kind of outcomes do you see happening to folks that are demanding your services, or the patients, or anything?
Yeah, I think for me, the one thing we have to remember is sometimes you get in the churn of IT, and you have to remember at the end as a patient. And for any one of us that has had a loved one, whether that's a child or not, when that moment happens, it's one of the scariest moments. And many of us have thought, I would change places with you. And that's a very real moment for many patients. They don't choose to come to the hospital, but they're there. And so some of my favorite moments are when I'm walking through the hospital. About a year ago, I shared this with Brad Cunningham, I came down off the elevator and I saw a child, and he was sitting in front of a birthday cake, and there was a dressed up Batman in that, and it said, "Congratulations, you're in remission." And I thought, you see that, and you're like, that's what it's about. But then you step back from that, and what's really neat is to see what our radiology department is doing with artificial intelligence. And not just thinking about your generic images with does it have a bone crack, but really the more complex cases where there's insights into how creating a care path might be better. Or being excited about every one of our intensive care units. I was part of some team meetings over the last few weeks, and they had these care progression scenarios where if you think about it, the whole job of these teams in our intensive care units is to make sure that they collectively as a team walk around and make sure that their care is progressing, right? So that we can get the kids or the women discharged. And in those conversations, they identified a bunch of technology and different workflows that they would love to have. Anything from an easy checklist to something that prompts them and says, hey, this patient is just waiting for this one pharmacist prescription or this one lab, and they can go home. And we want that to prompt and be a little bit more proactive. And what I love about this scenario we're in is 3 years ago, I would have gone to Teresa and said, okay, hey, we have this problem to solve, and we would have gone through the traditional IT chain. And now we have platforms, Epic has evolved. Our development around, Teresa and I were talking this morning about Power Apps, and Microsoft is saying, we can actually go back, and because we built a framework and we have the security wrapped around it, we can accelerate right into how do we build a solution for this. And that changes the game around how we can improve care within our environment because we're putting the right capabilities and frameworks in.
That's great, that's great. Okay, final question, just let's say we have an audience, they're trying to figure out how to move down their digital transformation. Any words of wisdom, any guidance that you would provide to the audience?
Sure. Well, I can talk about what John mentioned earlier about the ICE team, right?
Yeah.
So
So
in April of 2018, maybe about 2 months into my role at Texas Children's, Myra had asked for me to start leading a group called the ICE Group. And at that time, we didn't know the name. We gathered specific leaders within IT, and we mixed them up, right? Some of them were less than 1 year of tenure, and then 2 specifically had a long amount of domain knowledge, right? Because the thought is they've kind of conformed to the culture. It is what it is. They've tried so many times and no changes would happen. But the teams got together, and it was about 8 of them, and they came up with the ICE name, and it was Innovate, Change, and Empower. And really their goal, we had some very strict guidelines saying clean slate, don't think about money, don't think about resources, don't think about tried that, been there, done there. Go ahead and start thinking fresh of how IT should look in the next 3 to 5 years. We kept it more short term, right? Because there's so much great ideas within the new leadership team within IT, but we wanted to give them a forum to come together to propose and put together a fun presentation to our executive leadership and then present on how IT work should truly be performed, right? And it was interesting is this empowered them to put together, make it more fun and engaging, right? So I think for example, the first one was how do we do resource management and how do we keep the lights on while still giving our teams enough time to work on the new projects and the exciting initiatives, for instance, cloud. And they put together a skit, right? They did a skit, and somewhat they were making fun of, it was very transparent, making fun of some of the culture issues that we may have, not just in IT, but in the organization. And then they fast forward and said, we should be doing it this way, right? But the interesting part is, when they left the room, I don't know if you remember this, Myra was saying, that was a great way to let us know what we need to work on as leaders. Wow. Right? And this ICE team graduated in 2019, and we brought in a new class of ICE members, and now they're working on things like robotics, automation. How do we change the perception of IT, the brand of IT, and make it more customer facing? So I would say as you go down your journey for your digital journey, just don't think about technology. Right? The movement of human behavior and mindset is one of the biggest pieces to be successful in your digital journey.
Excellent point. John, anything?
I just echo, and one interesting stat when we took a look back, it was funny because the ICE team would come in and present to our director team, and oftentimes they would get a neat immediate like, well, you can't do that, you have resources, like all the. But if you measured 3 months, we measured almost every idea that came to the table. 3 months later, we moved on it.
Yep.
And so and so it really was a good platform to really think abstract and come in and say, hey, let's look in the mirror at ourselves at what we're doing, and let's think differently. And that was that's powerful, and it continues to be powerful in how we go about and change in our journey.
So thank you, John, Teresa. I think as demonstrated by the discussion, I mean, you're taking technology, but it's much more than the technology. You're talking the people, the processes, and I think you're a testament to where the world is going, and we're, I know, ecstatic to be a part of your journey. So thank you for taking the time.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.